Hi, I'm Luann Worley here with Rockin' Book Reviews, and I'm here today with Michele Drier, who is the author of Ashes of Memories, along with other mysteries and fun books that we'll talk about later. Michele, you were born with the name of Michael. What possessed your parents calling you Michael?
My mother was an avid reader, and she was crazy about a reader named Michael Strange, who in fact was a woman named Blanche Ulrich. And I've never read her, but I need to go back and find her. I've just put it off. So my mother named me Michael after that writer. And then when I don't remember this, about 6 months old, she said she got tired of saying, yes, her name is Michael. Yes, she's a girl. So she just changed it to Michele. It would seem to be easier all the way around.
So did you get it legally changed?
No, I never bothered. It didn't seem worthwhile. Until I went to get my first passport when I was about 19, and I had to get affidavits from my mother saying yes, that she'd changed my name, although she hadn't changed the birth certificate. So.
Okay, and you were raised in California, and you have a long history of family members that came to California. Tell us about it.
Well, the first member of my family got here from New Brunswick in 1849. He landed in San Francisco. And I'm assuming he was after gold, but he was actually a merchant. So he opened I don't know what kind of store he opened originally in San Francisco, but he stayed in San Francisco. And then on another side of that same family, one of my great-great-grandmothers crossed the Isthmus of Panama on muleback in 1852. And I actually have a picture of her in Marysville about 1856. I think it's a tintype of she and two of her children. So they got to this coast and they stayed on this coast. And then on my mother's father's side, that family goes back to about 1720 in Maryland. So people on both sides of my family are fairly long generational Americans, although they all came from England at one time or another.
Which is kind of unique, especially for California, to have that much history.
Yeah.
And which part of California do you like best?
Ooh, that's a hard question because all of it, California is one of those states, it's 900 miles or better than 900 miles long, and you can get everything you want. You've got the Sierra for skiing, you've got the beaches, and I've lived pretty much all over. Generally, I would say the San Francisco Bay Area. I was born in Santa Cruz, and I was raised in the Bay Area. My mother was born in San Francisco. My grandmother lived there for years. My dad was born in Oakland. So I'm basically from a family in the Bay Area. But I enjoyed living in Southern California. I very much enjoyed living in Humboldt County, which is up near the Oregon border. So it just depends on whether I would feel like I want rain today or desert today.
That sounds fun. Okay, and after you got out of school, you went on to become a journalist. What inspired you to become a journalist?
Well, when I started college, I was a chemistry major because in high school I was like a science nerd, one of the girls who took chemistry and physics and trig. And so I thought, well, I'll just become a chemist. That's, women chemists got paid much better than a lot of other professionals. But then when I ran into inorganic chemistry at the college level, I sort of rethought that choice. And by that time, I was hanging around some of the people in the journalism department, and they gave way better parties. They were a lot more fun. So I thought, So I ended up working very part-time at a small local newspaper while I was going to school. And then a previous friend of mine who I had moved away when I was in San Jose with my first husband, I noticed a press photographer's license plate, and it's a triangle in the corner that says PP, and you have to be an accredited press photographer in order to get the license plate. And I said, that can't be my friend Barry. And lo and behold, it was my friend Barry. And he worked at the San Jose Mercury News, and he said, come on down. I know that they're looking for vacation relief. So I went down there, and I started as vacation relief, and I ended up being probably 7 years there.
Wow.
A long time. It was fun. It was interesting. I was there during Watergate, and regardless of which side you're on, as a journalist, that's an incredibly adrenaline-producing event to have happen. Everybody was glued to. Well, at that time they were glued to the teletype machine because we didn't have, we weren't getting uh, television
So,
feed.
so those adventures is what led you to create the Amy Hobbs newspaper mysteries?
Exactly. At that time, and and it may still be, but I've been kind of out of the business for a while, but everybody I knew had you open your drawer and you had an unfinished novel that you were working on. And when I decided I really wanted to sit down and start writing, novels, I thought, well, write what you know. I've been a newspaper editor, a reporter and editor for better than 20 years. So I thought, well, that makes sense. So the protagonist in those, Amy Hobbs, is a managing editor at a small daily newspaper in the Central Valley. And she has a lot of adventures. She interacts with her staff. She's very close with the cops reporter. And the cops reporter, whose name is Clarice in the novels, is based on a composite of probably 5 or 6 people that I work with who were cops reporters, and then some of their quirks, and they all have quirks, some of their interests. So it's pulled from life in a broad sense. I mean, it's certainly fictionalized. The one thing that I have done in each of the books so far is actually have Clarice cover a murder that happened while I was working at a newspaper.
Wow.
So,
That's awesome. Okay, and then you also became a nonprofit administrator. Tell me a little bit about that.
I always believed in social change. I liked social change, and I worked for social change. And I started volunteering at a small women's center that was dealing with rape victims and survivors of sexual assault, things like that. And I had somebody come in who was on the board, came in and said, do you know how to write grants? And I said, no. She said, well, write us one. We need, So I wrote a grant, and it wasn't funded. So I went to the funding agency, and I said, why wasn't this funded? Tell me what I did wrong. And they went through it, and I thought, okay. So I started writing grants, and I became pretty successful. I even taught grant writing at the local university. But because of that, I understood that you had to have a program, and you had to have staffing, and you had to have goals in order to get money for it. You couldn't just say, we're a needy charity, give us money. So I realized that you have to put together an administrative package. And I found out that I was kind of good at that, and I liked it. Particularly when I got into the arts, because I didn't want to be an artist, and I didn't want to be an opera singer, and I didn't want to be a theater person. But what I would love to do is put together the right kind of package with the right kind of people to put on a really good theater or really good art show. And so I kind of fell into it, and I really liked it. And I do jigsaw puzzles, and I also do crossword puzzles. So it was kind of like that, putting pieces together to make the whole thing work and allow the creative people to go off and be creative people. So.
Sounds great. And so how, in all your busy schedule, how did you come up with the Kandinsky Vampire Chronicles?
It never had crossed my mind to write a vampire story. And my son-in-law, when I wrote my first mystery and it was published, it was on the way to being published when I got a contract, he said, well, that's great. Now go write a mystery, go write a vampire novel. And I looked at him and said, he and my daughter read about 5 or 6 books a week, and it's always fantasy. And I looked at him and I said, I've never even read a vampire novel. I don't, He said, well, go in and look to a bookstore and look at the size and how many shelves they devote to vampires, how many shelves they devote to mysteries, and then tell me that you can't write one. And I thought, well, okay, I'll read one. So I read Charlene Harris, and I read Jim Doctor, and I read Karen Monig. And I realized that the common theme in all of them was a romance. And I thought, well, I can write a romance. We don't have to be steeped in vampire lore to write a romance. So these are paranormal romances, long on the romance, short on the violence. These are not terribly violent vampires. But I absolutely loved writing their true fiction, their true fantasy. And they have developed this international conglomerate of gossip, celebrity gossip, and it's like Entertainment Tonight, or one of those. They have a TV show every night. They have 7 different bureaus around the world where they cover the royals and they cover sports stars, and it's all this glitz and glamour world that they're involved in. And I fell in love with them. It's so fun, and they have all these different adventures, and they're always in a fight with somebody. So they're always blowing up cars, and they all ride around in armor-plated limousines. And it's just, I don't know, it turned out to be very fun. I'm actually working on the 10th book in the series now.
Oh, wow. Well, I'm excited to read them. I haven't read them yet. And your Ashes of Memories is still unique and different. How did you come up with that idea?
Different genre completely. I was sitting here one day trying to remember a word. I don't remember what word it was, but I was sitting here thinking, wouldn't it be nice if you could just go to the store and buy more memory for your brain like you can for your computer? And I thought, memory for your brain. So I came up with the idea of somebody inventing a memory chip that could be basically implanted in your head. The idea being that it was good for people with cognitive problems and early onset Alzheimer's and things like that. So this chip is invented that is just empty memory, and I don't know how many gigs, because I don't know any of that stuff, but you know, so you have it implanted, just a tiny little chip, and it allows you to remember things that you have not been able to remember, that you can pull out of your memory, and it also allows you to store a lot more memories. And I thought, well, that's kind of a clever idea. I like that, particularly as some of us get a little older and can't remember all the words we want to use. And then I went a step further. I thought, what if there was a black market for those, and this guy has one implanted and he ends up killing a woman? And what if they take the chips out, you know, and recycle them and put them back into somebody else? Are those memories of being killed? So I went down there. I was thinking about making him a serial killer, or making, not him a serial, making memories be a serial killer. And then I thought, now I liked the characters that I ended up with so much, I thought I can't kill everybody off. So, but that's the basic genesis of it. It's how much you end up with a memory chip, and how much of that is brand new memories, and how much is remembered from the other person who had the chip.
So, well, it is unique, and I think it's a neat twist on the fiction industry. Right. Okay, and what goals do you want to fulfill in the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, I've got a minimum of 4 more books that I want to write that I already have plotted out. I want to finish the Kandinsky one. I've got a series of at least 3 at this point. Cozies, which are amateur sleuths, and there's not a lot of violence on the page. And the protagonist in that one is a woman who is a stained glass artist, and she moves to this little, really pretty, wonderful small town on the Oregon coast, and ends up kind of stumbling across a next door neighbor who's been killed. And, you know, she's going to have a love interest and things like that. And I've also got another, probably 2 or 3 of the Amy Hobbs series. One of them is going to be her previous husband, who ends up getting murdered in Chicago. And another one is going to be, I have a theory that murders basically are either for money or sex or love. And the money is going to be a big issue in another one. Fight over land, basically. A family is fighting over the land that they've inherited from their family from 150 years ago in California. And California land right now is pretty expensive. So there's a lot of money involved. So, and beyond writing, and as I say, I probably have 5 or 6 books that I still want to write. I'm the co-chair for an organization called VoucherCon, which is the world's oldest and largest mystery fan and writer convention. And in 2020, a friend and I are going to be putting one on here in Sacramento. And we're expecting 1,500 to 1,800 people for 5 days. So there will be a lot of administrative details. Nobody gets paid, but you need 200 or 300 volunteers, and it has to be structured pretty tightly in order to handle that many people for that period of time. But it's a really interesting convention, because people like Lee Childs show up, Michael Connelly show up, Katrina McPherson, who actually is a local writer, show up. So you get some really big name writers. And the thing that always amazes me at writers conventions is that the best-selling writers, they're all so approachable. I've seen people who just, go up to like Lee Child and start talking to him. And he turns around, he talks to them, he puts his arm around. Nobody is, it's not like well, I don't know because I've never been to the Oscars, but it's not that, there's not a differentiation between the fan and the writer. Writers are really, really open to talking with and being with their fans.
Sounds exciting.
I hope so.
Is there any final word you'd like to say before we sign off?
Well, for starters, thank you for talking to me. Lord
My
knows,
pleasure.
I always love to talk about writing and mysteries. I also teach writing. One thing I would like to say is when people read, hopefully when they buy, but when they read your book, I don't know if they know how much writers live and die on reviews. You can't even take out some ads without having X number of reviews. So it's really important. And even if you don't want to review one of my books, I always include, you can check on my website, you can check on Amazon. I would love to get email. One of the nicest things that ever happened was, oh my God, probably 3 or 4 years ago. And it was after I'd written maybe the second or third of the condensed book. And I got an email from this woman who said, I love these. I put $20 in your PayPal account because you shouldn't be giving them away. And I went, oh, how wonderful is that? And even if you don't like them, that's okay too. A good criticism can help me grow as a writer. So talk to your writer friends.
Thank you, because I don't think most people, I know I didn't realize before I became a reviewer how important reviews were.
They are, yeah.
So I appreciate it, and thank you so much. And I urge all of our viewers to read all your wonderful books and to be sure to explore the universe through reading.
Right.
Signing off.
Okay. Thanks so much, Luann.
Bye.
Bye-bye.